All right, everyone. Steve Metrics here, No Debate Sports. My guy DJ TRIGGS, a little bit under the weather tonight, so going to be me tonight steering the ship, guiding you through tonight's pregame for the Eagles Chiefs, and a little bit of review from what happened with Week 11. So with that, tonight we got the Super Bowl rematch between the Eagles and the Chiefs. So pretty big game here. Pretty cool thing that I noticed from this is that I think this one's going to be pretty tight. I think it's going to be tight, especially with tonight's weather, but with the fact that both these teams have very solid defenses. So when I look at it from the Eagles side of things, they're pretty stout against the run, but their secondary is definitely susceptible. When you look at it from the Chiefs side, this is a Chiefs defense that's really, really top notch, especially ever since Chris Jones rejoined the team since week 1. But when they really bring that pressure and it's not being thought about per se from the quarterback's perspective, it's pretty devastating and it's very tough to play against. So I think there's going to be times where that Chiefs defense can be susceptible when they bring the house. I like it for there being the possibility that maybe a Devontae Smith maybe gets less attention. Plus he has more wheels, more speed. So he brings that added dimension threat to the game. When you look at it from the defensive side of Philadelphia, sure, they're pretty stout up front, but in the secondary, they are one of the teams in the NFL that's not as good against the tight end. And when you look at the games with how the Chiefs are winning, they're winning games when Travis Kelce really balls out. When he has great games, they pretty much win them all. When he struggles, that's when they are susceptible. That's when they can lose. That's when Mahomes throws for less than 200 yards a game and doesn't have some of his better games. So that's the concerning part of this game. This game is in Arrowhead, but when I look at it, I think the fact that Philadelphia is not as good in the secondary against tight ends, I think that will show tonight. When I look at it from the running game of Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, really awesome runner, really good player, but I don't think it goes well against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is one of the top 3 rush defenses in the entire NFL, and I think that's going to continue to show up. Maybe it's kind of like a dual threat between him and Jerick McKinnon, but for the most part, I think they're going to have to work that middle of the field. And I think that does benefit Jerick McKinnon, and it does benefit Travis Kelce and maybe a little bit of Rashee Rice. But that's kind of how I think tonight's game is going to go. I would think this game, especially with the weather, whatever this point total is, really, if you are betting the point total for this game, I would think go under. Just with how these defenses are, they are very top-notch at what they do. They really have a game plan of what's going on. They've seen this game on their calendars for the longest time, ever since the schedule was released. So, they've really been paying attention to this. I think the defenses really step up. The weather plays a part, and I think we do have a lower scoring game tonight. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I went ahead and did a underdog fantasy on this, and especially after last week losing by 2 yards, just needed Dalton Kincaid to get just 2 more yards, and that would have gotten 4 out of 5. But tonight's game, the way I'm looking at it, is again with that Devontae Smith getting less attention. I like him getting 1 touchdown tonight. I like AJ Brown getting less than 82.5 yards receiving. On the Eagles side, I like Harrison Butker making at least 2 field goals. I need Jerick McKinnon to get over 15 receiving yards, and I really think that's a real likelihood, and especially for the fact that this guy can do some of what Travis Kelce does in a game too. So I like those routes that he runs. And then Isaiah Pacheco, 49 rushing yards isn't a lot, but against this Eagles defense, I like them kind of holding him below that. And I also I could see it being over, but I believe it would be over in a combined effort from Jerick and Isaiah. So those are the 5 picks that I'm going with tonight's game. If you got 5 picks of your own, let us know what you like and send us a comment or a post on that. So that'd be pretty cool to see what you got there. So that's what we got from the Eagles and Chiefs game. And now let's take a little bit of a look at these other games. So Thursday night, big AFC North battle. We had the Bengals, we had the Ravens. And watching this game, watching Lamar Jackson play to me is very frustrating. And he definitely got hurt in this game, got hurt, went out, came back in. And then, yeah, he got 2 touchdowns on the day, about 260 yards throwing. But it's just frustrating seeing this guy play outside the pocket. And he is very dependent to me on Mark Andrews. So I would love to see him really not necessarily air it out more, but air it out more effectively to a Zay Flowers, an OBJ, and a Rashad Bateman. I think he can do a lot of great work with those guys. Even Devin Duvernay was doing a lot of nice work last season when they were playing. But that's what it is. It's kind of rough. And I think the big part of this game was definitely that Joe Burrow got hurt early. So he showed up with some kind of splint on his wrist. And then later in the game, he got banged up and he was out, and that was about it. Not much offense after that. There was a solid Joe Mixon day for fantasy owners. He had some really nice plays on the ground, about almost like 10 yards a carry at times. Ended up getting 70 yards on the day. And then he had that really nice touchdown reception earlier in the game. But that was about it. And Ravens take care of business. But I just keep having the feeling that this is a team that is going to look really good with a record, but I think they will get figured out come the postseason, and we'll see what happens. But I still don't like the Ravens, and I know all the numbers support them and being a really good team, but watching them on TV, it is incredibly frustrating, and it doesn't make sense. I do love the run game, but outside of that, I don't see it coming together. So there you go. You got 34-20 out of the Bengals, and Ravens are atop the AFC North. So there we go. We got that game there. And then going into the my team, my Raiders against the Miami Dolphins, a really top-notch offense, a really tough team to play against. The biggest takeaway that I had in this game, really watching Miami, is that when Tua Tagovailoa goes into play action pass, it is terrifying. Basically, at that point in time, it feels like those receivers that when they're obviously out of the gates, it's more often than not they're being covered in zone because they are so fast, they are so shifty. But when that play action is effective and there's more time in the pockets, then they get loose, and then it becomes man-to-man at best. And we had a play early in that game where we just could not defend Tyreek Hill after he caught the ball, and that led to a touchdown early on. So that's pretty scary. But for the most part of this game, we were able to hold them in check for the majority of the game. I guess the other thing is that Aiden O'Connell just isn't the guy. He is definitely a backup in my eyes. He can make some good throws. He can definitely throw the ball deep, but again, quarterback, none of the Patriots guys were, and Aiden O'Connell is not either. To me, this is a team that if we had a solid quarterback, I think we can win this game. But with the guys we had and the plays that Aiden O'Connell made, it just wasn't good enough. So there you go there. Josh Jacobs made some really nice runs, but at the end of the day, that offense of Miami is really, really tough to play against. So we did okay, but Miami, give them a lot of credit. I love the creativity they run on offense. And just seeing Tua Tagovailoa, not necessarily himself being scary, but the moment he goes into play action and has all the time behind the line of scrimmage, it's pretty scary. It just always feels like a big play is about to happen. More often than not, it does. Just look at the numbers that Tyreek Hill has now. He's on pace for almost 1,500 yards, and this is a guy that's going to come close to getting 2,000 on the season. So pretty cool there. Pretty cool game, but we'll see what my Raiders can do next week against those Chiefs playing tonight. So good stuff there. We'll see what happens. Going to another game, my guy Triggs, his team, the Green Bay Packers, had a pretty solid game against the LA Chargers. And Jordan Love actually looked good in this game. Good footwork, solid passes, very overall solid game, almost 70% completion percentage, threw for over 300 yards and had two touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. So, really excellent game out of Jordan Love. But the thing with this is the one game that Jordan Love has for over 300 yards is against the LA Chargers. And we know their secondary is dreadful. So, it is what it is there, but ultimately not good enough for again too. Looking at this team, it seems like the Chargers, their offense doesn't get going unless Austin Eckler really does get going. And on the day, he had only 64 yards rushing. Let's take a look at how much he had receiving. Only six, so just 70 yards combined on Austin Eckler on the day. Just not much going on there. And we know Justin Herbert is basically playing one-handed at quarterback, so pretty tough sledding there. But Green Bay gets the win, and they're 4-6, and so is LA. So next game, really cool game, even though it's low scoring. Another battle of the AFC North. And this is the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers, both teams that I like. And I like to make the playoffs, even though Pittsburgh is rough. It is a rough offense. They have some really good players on offense, but the way they work that offense is really rough. But I think the cool thing out of this is Jaylen Warren's going on a tear. I think Jaylen Warren is suddenly becoming one of the better running backs in the entire NFL, and it's a short list of running backs that have touchdowns against Cleveland. I think now it's at about 3 or 4 for the season, and Jaylen Warren's one of them, including the fact that Jaylen Warren had almost 130 yards rushing against this stout Cleveland defense and a touchdown. So pretty cool stuff there out of him. Dorian Thompson Robinson, a guy that I love coming out of UCLA. Doesn't have that great of a day, has an interception, but either does Kenny Pickett. This game is just a bruiser of a game, just a grindy game. Not much on the run game of Cleveland, but just enough to get there for the day. Each team has a touchdown, and Cleveland just had one more field goal in Pittsburgh, and that's good enough. But both teams have excellent defenses, so if you ever have to stream something or you're playing for like a daily fantasy league, both Cleveland and Pittsburgh are really top notch, especially against teams that have quarterbacks that are struggling. So love what we got there out of those two defenses. And then next game, we'll go to the north on the other side of the NFC. Pretty high scoring game, pretty back and forth. But the thing that I don't like out of this is even though Detroit won this game, I don't like seeing them win with a lot of points and a ton of interceptions out of Jared Goff. To me, that tells me that if this team were to play against a better defense and Jared Goff has a game like that, they are not winning. Chicago does have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, yet Detroit was still able to put up those points, which they should. But the interceptions were just rampant on Jared Goff. So we had 3 of those on the day, 2 touchdowns he threw. The rushing side is what really helped him out. David Montgomery is now back to pretty much full health, so now that takes Jahmyr Gibbs back, and Jahmyr Gibbs becomes more of like that X factor, that shifty tailback player on the team. So David Montgomery does his thing. Jahmyr Gibbs helps out. They both get 2 touchdowns combined, and that's pretty strong. That's good enough to get there. When it comes to the receiving, it came from big plays, and it came from the slot. So you get that slot out of Monroe St. Brown and get that deep threat out of Jameson Williams. So pretty good stuff there. But just really want to see more consistency, more high-end quarterback play out of Jared Goff. Considering this isn't a guy who is really a runner, it's a guy who really makes plays in the pocket and with that play action. So we need to see better of it, and we'll see what happens. On the Chicago side, you still get the erraticness out of Justin Fields. This could really make things interesting for Chicago, I think. And the record isn't the greatest, but this is a team that I think is obviously going to go after either Caleb Williams in the draft or they're going to fortify that offensive line. A lot of good, really left tackles in this draft. We'll see what happens. If they choose to get Caleb Williams, unload Justin Fields, get more um, draft equity in return, this could actually shape up and then get Justin Fields out of there, get him to a new team. We'll see what happens. But DJ Moore had a pretty solid game with Fields. Seems like that chemistry is coming back. So I like seeing that. But at the end of the day, Detroit was just better. So they do have a more dynamic offense than Chicago. And ultimately, it showed. All right. Uh, weird game out east in the NFC. You have the Giants at Washington. And I think this is a pretty weird one because we're used. I mean, Sam Howell's one of the oddly, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL this season, as wild as it is. And he had very similar problems that Jared Goff had. 3 interceptions, threw it a bunch, but just got way too wild with it. And made a play with his legs, definitely scored. But yeah, a little too wild, a little too much. I know if you actually have the Giants defense in fantasy this week, they just went absolutely insane based off those picks. But on the other side, you had a solid game out of Tommy DeVito, almost 250 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks. You can take that any day of the week. Completion percentage above 70. So really solid game out of him for the day. On the receiving side, you had Darius Slayton. Had a pretty solid game, 80 yards receiving and a score. And then you had 2 receiving touchdowns out of Saquon Barkley and a real solid rushing game on the day for him too. So really awesome day out of Saquon Barkley, and they just get a dominant victory against Washington. So pretty cool there. Also in the NFC, you have Dallas, and they just pummeled Carolina, and they pretty much took this game to pretty much garbage time in the fourth quarter, and not a single point out of Carolina at that point. And Bryce Young just looks absolutely inept. Just really disappointing to see the fact that all of that stuff in the draft was pointing that CJ Stroud is the best quarterback coming into the draft, and they let politics get in the way. And they have Bryce Young, and he is clearly not an NFL quarterback. So pretty rough there. And Dallas took care of business. So we had a okay, not the greatest day out of Dak Prescott. It was okay, but then you had more production out of the run game. So Tony Pollard getting more involved in the offense actually scored his first touchdown since week 1. Real rough day for a rough season for fantasy owners there, but Dallas is really showing that they can really put up the points on almost anyone in various ways. They can do it with the defense, they can do it in the air, and they can do it somewhat on the ground as well. So really solid production out of Dallas. But again, Carolina, the worst team in the NFL, and their first overall draft pick will be Chicago. So Chicago loves seeing Carolina lose. All right. A game that was kind of a shocker for me because I thought this game would be different. A really bad secondary in Jacksonville, and to me, an offense that now would have the ability to kind of air it out against a team that, excuse me, isn't as good against the pass. But that didn't happen at all. This whole game was dominated by Jacksonville, and pretty much only passes that were completed here by Tennessee were in garbage time. For the longest time, Will Levis had only 7 passes in the first half. Very disappointing there. Uh, Absolutely nothing on the ground. Nothing out of Derrick Henry, like Tajay Spears, nothing. You only had 1 receiving touchdown out of DeAndre Hopkins. Other than that, pretty much nothing else on the Tennessee side. Jacksonville's side really went crazy, especially if you had a Calvin Ridley receiving day. You were an owner of Calvin Ridley. 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards receiving there. Pretty good day for Trevor Lawrence. 2 touchdowns. I also want to say he had a few, yeah, and 2 touchdowns rushing. So just really good stuff there. Just a solid day out of Ridley for the day. A game that was kind of tight, kind of a shocker, kind of a sneaky good game, and especially watching this team, Arizona now. Now they have their original starting quarterback in Kyler Murray. James Conner came back, so that team can play kind of sneaky now. They can play kind of good. We know back in the early part of the season, they had a good offensive line. They had a somewhat okay defense at times, and that kind of showed. James Conner did his thing on the ground with what he could. 62 yards rushing, about 4.5 yard average per carry. Kyler Murray did okay here. CJ Stroud threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Not the greatest there, but just that explosive downfield threat that he brings, especially with Tank Dell having a big day, and then again connects with Dalton Schultz, and then just the run game. See, I think this is showing that when you have a dominant quarterback that can throw downfield, it greatly opens up the run game. And now Devin Singletary again is just really making things happen. 100 yards rushing and a score. Really cool there. This Texans team to me is one of the scarier teams in the mix. I think they have a great defense, and they have that threat with CJ Stroud that's just terrifying, especially with the receivers and how that opens up the run game. So I love what the Texans have going on there. They're kind of the 49ers of the state of Texas. And speaking of which, San Francisco basically just owned Tampa Bay. Uh, uh, Pretty much a perfect quarterbacking day out of Brock Purdy. This looks exactly what we want to see: 80% completion percentage, 300 plus yards passing, 3 scores. Awesome day, big day out of Brandon Ayuk. I want to say, yeah, yep, 150 plus and a score. Really, really solid day out of him for that. But the Buccaneers, it's it's rough. I don't know. Baker Mayfield's just still not looking right. Still doesn't look like a true number one pick, and it's just not going to develop. So you got 1 touchdown on Mike Evans, only 40 yards receiving on the day. So you do get that consistency out of Mike Evans, and usually you get it out of Rashad White. I don't think you got it today. No, well, kind of. Had a rushing touchdown, 30 yards on the ground, but overall, it's not what you're looking to see with Tampa Bay. So not one of the better teams in the NFC, but is what it is. So San Francisco looking good again, looking like they're one of the better teams in the entire NFL. So got that game there, and another interesting game on the day was out. Well, not the greatest interesting, but I thought this game was going to be a lot closer between the Jets and the Bills, and I thought that Jets defense could really take care of the receivers outside and stop Josh Allen. But Josh Allen picked him apart in the best part of the field. He took him in the middle of the field and really didn't do much outside. So he had some good production in Cade, but really made things happen with Khalil Shakir. So over 100 yards receiving with Shakir, a touchdown out of him. And that's the thing is that's a hard team to play outside. Get him in the middle. And that's exactly what Buffalo did. So for all the flack Josh Allen's had, and deservingly so, he really made up for that play against one of the better defenses in the NFL with the Jets. All right. Almost there. Almost got these games covered. We got 2 more left, and we got the Rams and the Seahawks. So pretty ugly game here. Just not much out of the Rams, but just enough to squeak by. Um, yeah, it's rough. Basically, this is Matt Stafford's first game back after uh, dislocating his thumb. Uh, so just a little bit of production out of Puka Nakua. Had an okay day out of Geno Smith, but this game was tight, and this game came down to a missed field goal by the Seahawks. So pretty much about it. I don't know. Seattle's just a really odd team. They don't always do it the way you think, and I don't know. They just gotta kind of find that identity. But this is why I think Geno Smith is okay, but not a great quarterback, and it showed. It showed against the Rams. So There you go there. And then the final game of Sunday at night, the Broncos and the Vikings. And this game didn't go the way I thought it would go. I thought Denver would pretty good, especially at home, elevation at night, kind of a weird scenario for Minnesota to play in. And it kind of showed. But Josh Dobbs, he is one of the, I think he's the only player to have for like his first three starts with the team have both a rushing and a passing touchdown. So that's pretty cool there with Dobbs. Not a great game. The Denver defense is getting better, especially from home. Wilson has a good game. Well, an okay game. Good completion percentage, okay yardage. Not so great on the touchdowns, but good enough to get there. So pretty there. Again, another magical throw to Cortland Sutton, and pretty cool stuff there. So that's what we got out of the Vikings and Broncos, and that's pretty much everything we got. So we got that. We got the Eagles, and it looks like they're just starting out, kind of a low-scoring game. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so that's everything for tonight. We'll watch that game. We'll recap it tomorrow, and we'll see if our boy DJ Triggs is here tomorrow. Hopefully, he's doing better and he can join us. So you can check us out tomorrow, 7 o'clock, same time, here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. So you can see us there, and we'll see you tomorrow. So I'm Steve Metrics. That's No Debate.